thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
This has been a crazy weekend.
Oh, really? For
I
other
mean,
reasons or just,
no, for this. This
yeah.
has just blown my mind how I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's going on 5 years this February, and
Mm.
it has just been a whirlwind. I mean, her case has been, I said worldwide, and literally everybody is involved. So I'm really surprised you haven't heard about it.
And my parents, I talked to them this morning about it for the first time, and they thought that I knew everything that was going on because I keep up with so many of my friends,
Yeah.
um and I had no clue. And they said, "Oh, we figured you just didn't want to talk about it." And I was like, "When do I not talk about things? This is
Right?
crazy." Yeah, yeah. And even some of my friends have heard about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we were just watching videos and like a short documentary." I'm like, "What?"
Did they know that you knew her?
Uh-uh.
Oh, yeah,
No. They
yeah.
just knew it was in Florida. They didn't know that it was like Central Florida where I'm from, and yeah, no.
Did you go online? Did you read all the details there? Yeah. Have you watched any of the videos? What are your thoughts on it all?
Uh, I'm no words. No, yeah. It's my husband sent me Brian's testimony. I feel so sorry for the Boone family,
Yeah.
being dragged into this. I've grown up with them as well. Um, yeah, I feel so bad for his son.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't talked to he or Sarah in like over 10 years.
Okay.
Um, like I
But
said,
your family like grew up with the Boone family, or at least you knew them for a long time?
we had
Oh.
carpool in
Oh,
elementary school with the Boone family.
oh wow.
Lived in my neighborhood. My mom and Mary played tennis together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So very intertwined. Yeah.
yes.
Well, I will say he is one person I have intentionally not reached out to talk to him because I think he and his son deserve much needed privacy at this point. I can't even imagine. I feel the same way that you do, what he was dragged through, what their son has been dragged through.
He's in high school with his mother as a high profile criminal.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just awful.
And it's been going on. She just now got sentenced, but so it's been an ongoing large topic for 5 years. I just can't imagine. And they've been staying, they still, at the time at least, were living in the same area. So yeah, it just is a lot. So you
And
said, oh,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, so you sent me that picture and I had to go back and look at it today, but was that a christening?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's neat to see photos of her with other people because, her parents died, her grandparents died. One of
Mhm.
her brothers was in prison for a very long time, and he either still is or he just got out.
I don't know anything about Tyler, but yeah.
Yeah. And
But
then,
then Philip's been in the army.
yeah, well, he seems like he's doing well and
Yes.
trying to stay far away from this situation.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I didn't reach out to him either. I feel like he doesn't need to be constantly talking about this or dealing with this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Philip's a good kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should say he's not a kid. He's 40 something years old. He's not a kid, but I mean, in my eyes, he's still a kid because
Yeah.
I grew up at her house. So
Yeah. So you went to school in elementary school with her?
elementary and junior high.
Okay. Yeah. So you definitely have, it's crazy how that works that you knew her, but then you also knew the Boone family pretty well.
Well, Brian's younger brother, John, was in our grade with us.
Oh, okay.
And then
Yeah.
they have a little sister. So we knew John.
Yeah.
We kind of knew Brian, but he was the older brother.
Right. Wow. Um, so one of the things I was curious about, just as I wasn't sure how much details you went into for all of this, but I was just curious if there was anything overly surprising. You know, the media portrays one side of her, and that's why I've done so much research to try to find other things because nobody knows anything about her life before, about her personally. You know, was this a time that she was just off the rails and it's not who she was that you remember?
Oh, it's definitely not the person I remember, but I don't know who she's been for the last 10 years
Yeah.
either. So, I mean, growing up, there was three of us. Susan, she was the real conservative one. I was the semi-conservative, and Sarah was the fun one.
Mm, yeah.
And but together we had fun, and we were kids growing up and doing all the kid things and playing softball and yeah. Um, I just she was a straight A student. Um, Parents were always proud of her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just I don't I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened between she and Brian. An adorable house on
Yeah.
the east side of town, great pool. They just redone a bathroom, and I had their son, and all was well. And then the next thing I know, I heard through the grapevine that they were divorced, but I that's all I ever heard again. And then of course, pandemic hit, and
Oh, yeah.
I've got three kids, and life went on, and I really don't try to listen to the news.
Yeah.
But for me to not see this online, and granted, you have to understand, I moved to the other side of town before high school,
Okay.
where I lost my connection
Right.
to anyone that went to Edgewater
Yeah.
because I moved over and went to Winter Park. So, I mean, I kept in touch with some people through church, but that was where that was back before cell phones and pagers and
Right. The convenience of to be able to keep up with other people. That makes sense. And I
yeah,
mean, and also, were you in your teens at that point?
right,
Yeah. So yeah, you're just meeting new people and going to school. Yeah.
yeah. So, getting into sports and things like that. So, yeah, um, she was a great best friend.
Yeah. I was gonna say that there's not a lot of talk about her personally, but for Brian, he did make statements to the police. And then they were later, coming out through the trial that they were dealing with issues, but drinking became one of the top issues. And he just said he couldn't deal with it anymore. And that year, that was 2018, they had separated, but he wasn't done. But she had met then George Torres, and it was over from that point.
Mm.
So, so I
I
think
kind of
it's,
had a feeling it was something like that.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it makes sense. It seems like there was definitely at some point time that she just started going downhill and it just kept going downhill. And maybe that is because of the drinking, whenever that really picked up. I don't know. But it makes sense. It sounds like Brian was dealing
Alcohol
with
is
a lot.
never a good thing.
No,
No.
yeah. And yeah, Brian was dealing with a lot just in those times, trying to take care of Lucas. So to continuously every year deal with something. And then this, it's just overwhelming.
Mhm.
But you said that a lot of it's shocking and she wasn't really how she is at least portrayed now.
I watched her statement before they sentenced her, that really long, drawn
I,
out,
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
very eloquently put, but without any sincerity,
Yeah.
without any remorse.
That is the number one thing that everybody who's been involved in this case, they all say the same thing. There was no remorse. In all of it, she has never cried or said sorry or anything. And even the day that the police came when she called them, and because she found him dead, She didn't cry. She just kept saying, "What's going to happen to me?" And I think that really kickstarted all the media and people following her because she had such an odd reaction to the entire thing.
So that's what you meant by the body camera footage of the police and her saying that. Oh, okay. I hadn't seen that part yet.
So there's many of those. Um, she basically called the police every other day for years. So they have a lot of it. She was drunk in basically every single one. But even in her interrogation with the police, it's just, she's been very remarkable about making these statements that are just so outlandish, considering why she's there. Someone died. And yeah, so she definitely has brought on a lot of attention by her comments. And then, as I said to you, um, she kept issuing letters from jail and they would go public. Even if they were like talking to the judge, they all have to go out to the public. And she knew that. And she had gone through eight attorneys. Eight attorneys would not work with her. And so she made a public letter searching for an attorney and put it out there. So it just continued to grow from there.
Yeah, I don't think the judge liked her too much.
No. And we also found out that that judge is the one who dealt with her brother and him going to prison. So there was definitely a lot of ties.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting too.
Hmm.
Yeah, last I heard, he lived in a motor home or mobile home or whatever and worked at a convenience store. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Uh,
He was still there last time I looked. I think that was his last location up until he went to prison. And I don't want to flag myself, so I'm going to be careful on how I say this, but he was arrested for R-ing a minor.
okay.
Yeah. So between him and Sarah, the other brother is just like, no, I can't. Hiding. Yeah.
Poor Phil.
Yeah. It's it's been a lot. Do you have any memories of her mom? That's been a huge topic because people have wondered if maybe she started struggling with issues or even drinking because maybe they had a hard childhood. I know her dad died kind of young.
From what I understand, when she and Brian were dating, she was still living at home, and her dad had a heart attack and died, and she found him.
Oh no, that's awful.
Yeah. So that was really rough, but that was after her mom had already passed. I don't really know why her mom passed. This was at that time where I was disconnected from that side of town and her. Um, her parents seemed really easygoing.
Okay.
Her dad was the type you'd find in the recliner after 5 o'clock watching whatever TV.
Yeah.
Her mom would be some kind of apron, not even an apron, it was more like a moo or something. And, in the kitchen doing whatever.
Yeah.
It- it- no, I mean, I remember playing a Super Nintendo at their house.
So
She
just
had
a
a Super
very
Nintendo.
typical family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This has
I
been
mean, that's what I saw from my point of view.
sure. Yeah.
If the doors were to close and it's just them at home, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a fair statement. I mean, I guess you do never know, but there hasn't been anything bad said in that regards. Not that there's been a lot said because her family is now basically Paul and he's very silent. So it's interesting to know that things were at least okay for what you saw. Um,
yeah.
and you made the comment that you guys had drifted apart, probably because you moved, but then you guys were slowly starting to talk again at some point or reconnect.
Um, I think it might have been okay. So it was before Lucas was born. Um, I don't know how we reconnected. I think maybe one of us found the other online,
Yeah.
and it just so happened maybe my family and I were going back for a visit. Um, my family is all still there in Orlando. Um, and we got together and then Lucas came soon after and she invited me to his christening and to be one of his godparents.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was really sweet. And you saw my Annie in the picture, now my 20-year-old. So she was 6 at the time. Oh, yeah.
Time
I'm not that old.
flies.
I'm not that old.
Time flies. I
Um,
like cry about it every day.
You and me both. There was a time where we moved back to Florida for a short time.
Okay.
And so we started spending more time with them um, while we were there. And and then things happened and we moved back out here
Mm,
just for our own personal reasons.
right.
Um, if I could take this little town I'm in and stick it in Florida, I'd be very happy.
Yeah.
But my husband's self-employed and it was just a wrong decision. So,
Mm,
anyways, yeah, we moved back here and we got back into the swing of life and just didn't end up, staying connected.
yeah. Well, and I think social media helps that at some point you could open the door to check up on each other. But yeah, when you're that far removed, I mean, that is a long way from Florida. So yeah, it's hard not to just live your life. And sometimes you do kind of fall out of touch, but that's normal.
Mhm.
But you said your parents still live there.
Oh yeah.
What do they think about this whole thing? I think it's kind of funny that they knew and thought that you just didn't want to talk about it.
Eh, Obviously they don't know their daughter. My
Yeah.
goodness. Um, yeah. Um, and I will tell you that they didn't actually they weren't too excited about me talking to anybody.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but I don't really have anything to offer to. I mean, the case is done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just more of a you seeing a little bit more of her from long before.
Yeah.
And I get that. And I was curious as to how you found me and way to go, you.
Thank you.
Um um but I just she was my friend, you know?
Yeah.
I thought I owed her just a little bit of someone being able to understand the person that she was. I don't know who she is now.
Yeah.
I don't know what has happened. Um I did talk to someone going, why in the world did she not just apologize right off the bat and say she made a horrendous mistake and just go that route? And I'm wondering if those 8 attorneys each tried to push her that way and she rejected it each time or something.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely don't know why for all of them. We know a couple reasons for a couple of them who said basically that she wanted them to say something that they thought went against their code for being a lawyer. And they weren't willing to do that because it's not worth them getting barred from being able to be a lawyer.
From being
But
disbarred, yes.
mhm, yeah,
Yes.
so we do know that, but I don't think it's probably that way for all of them. That's a lot to go through.
Well, I did read that they did get a plea deal at one point and got it down to manslaughter and only 15 years in prison, and she turned it down.
Yeah, that was, I don't know how she turned that down. And we think that her attorney, who was her last one, James Owens, um, we think he was telling her to take it. It's not for sure. He couldn't come out and say that, but
Right.
it sounds like that. And she thought that she wasn't going to get anything. In fact, she thought she did too much time at that point, and so she rejected it. And then and then it went to second degree murder and she was found guilty. So, yeah, it was shocking that she didn't take that plea, but I don't think she realized that the jury was most likely not going to swing her direction for this. So then she right now is fighting to have an appeal with a different lawyer. We don't know much on that. We know that that was filed. Um, but while that's in motion, she went from the jail in Orlando and now she's at the reception center, which is just basically a place that inmates go until they're transferred and placed into their prison. So she's right now there. But I think they're still fighting to try to get more documents out and keep the appeal ball rolling. Oh, and I was gonna say about your parents. Yeah, I understand completely people being like, "Oh, I don't know, you should talk about that." Um, I don't, I definitely went into it being like, I am not going to be here talking bad about Sarah or anything like that. Everyone can have their own opinions on it all. But really, what kickstarted me trying to find people on Sarah's side, not Sarah's side in this case, but in general, like you knew her, anybody that knew her, was when she had her sentencing, she was allowed to have people come and speak on her behalf. And her brother wrote a letter, which was not allowed to be read in court. And the only two people that came to speak on her behalf, just try to say, like, I can vouch that she's a good person or anything about her. It was one inmate that had been in the same jail as her. She came, and then there was a lady in Wisconsin that she met after she was already in jail and they were writing letters to each other. That's the girl who phoned in and talked to the court. And that was it. She had nobody else. And it really just, I already wanted to find stuff about her beforehand, but that motivated me even more because like there has to be somebody who actually knows her. And it's just shocking that nobody was there for her then. Like I
That's
even thought
true.
there was a small chance Brian Boone was going to come in and say something for her, but
Like I said, I have no idea where their relationship stood. Or what, yeah. Um, if I had known this sooner and still had the whole past with her that I have, I don't think it would have been fair to her for me to stand up for her because I don't know the person she is now.
right. Yeah.
My heart breaks that there was no one there for her.
Yeah. And so that's why like I said, I appreciate people wanting to be reserved and maybe not, but my intention is definitely only that. I just really wanted to hear anything. I want to hear good things about her. All you've heard for 5 years is that she's horrible. And it's not all who she is. I mean, like you said, that was something that you're looking at, and it's like, this isn't who I knew when I knew her.
Mm-mm. I can tell you two memories of the time that I had with her when we were kids. We used to go around the corner to from her house to a little mini mart or whatever little thing. It was right off Edgewater Drive, close to Bishop Moore. And I remember one time there was some like I don't know if it was a group of boys or something, but it was kind of a we felt like it wasn't good for us to be there.
Mhm.
But she felt it. She noticed it. She goes, "We need to leave right now."
Huh.
So she was very smart and very aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but and that's I don't know why that's always stuck with me. But another fun memory is we took a rowboat out into the middle of Lake Fairview one time and sunbathed and flirted with boys passing by in boats and got a little sunburned and we're kids.
Yeah. Just having a good time.
But I mean, this was late 80s, right
Okay.
around, because I moved away in 92. Yeah, the late 80s, early 90s.
I'm happy that you have good memories for her, and thank you for sharing. Like you said, she can't be all bad, and this whole thing obviously is bad, but it's nice to hear that she was different before. But I still think that having that connection of her before this happened is so important, because it's easy to throw stones looking at the situation she's in for people who don't know her. So I just wanted to find a little bit more humanity. And so I'm happy you have good memories to share.
Yeah, I wish more people did. And I just, in watching the little bit that I've watched, and all this has happened, I'm just wondering, I'm curious about her mental health.
That has been a huge thing, even in the trial.
Did
Yeah.
they do a psychological evaluation?
Yeah, they did several. They were trying to use the whole thing around their entire trial was that they wanted to do a battered wife syndrome, saying that that played a role into what happened. Um, it did not successfully work,
Mhm.
because a lot of the actual proof, the videos, the audio, text messages, just all of it showed that she was, for the most part, the aggressor. So she definitely had, oh, and she had some sort of underlying depression,
Mhm.
but nothing else has been concrete with that. But they definitely did do that and try to bring up at least those two things.
Then I don't know who she is anymore at all.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good PSA about alcohol. I don't think she was on any drugs or anything, but alcohol can be just as bad if you're abusing it. And she and George both drank way too much.
Mhm.
It was always kind of my perspective when I first heard this, that I don't think she intentionally left him in the suitcase to die. But I do
Mhm.
think that most likely she blacked out and just didn't even know or remember that that even happened.
Mhm. Well, she forgot she even videotaped it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and part of the issue with the trial, so with her new attorney, they want to do battered wife syndrome, but that would mean that she remembered everything, but she was afraid. And the whole time up until that point, she was saying she didn't remember what happened in different things. So it completely contradicted what everybody heard previously.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it contradicted what she had been saying and what the jury got to see, in the body cam footages, like in the interrogation. So that was another thing for her that was not going well for her, since she had been previously saying one thing and then switched.
Yeah, I haven't watched the interrogation. I haven't had a chance to watch that. That one's like an hour
Yeah, I was
or
going to
so.
say it's a long one.
Hmm.
Yeah, they were trying to fight in court to have that entire thing removed because they didn't tell her that she was coming in for an interrogation, but legally they're not supposed to, like they don't have to. But she was very upset about that entire interrogation coming out.
And the adult in me doubts that there was just a loophole she was trying to catch.
Yeah.
I feel bad for thinking that way, but in this day and age, with this tough world we live in, you have to. I can't give the benefit of the doubt to people anymore.
No. Well, and it's hard to do that in her case, at least, because there's just been so much physical evidence of so many things.
Hmm.
But But it's sad. I mean, kind of like what you were saying, going over to the house and everything seemed fine, but you don't know how things were when you left. I kind of feel the same way about their situation. It sounds like they both were abusive to each other. And it was just a very, very toxic environment as a whole.
I just don't know how Brian knew this was happening because they both got arrested multiple
Oh,
times
Brian knew
for
very well
domestic
this was.
violence. Yeah, and how would he let his son go there?
I don't know. Brian had said previously that there would be many times that Sarah was supposed to get him from school and she just wouldn't. She flaked a
Forgot.
lot. Yeah. I can't even imagine him knowing all of this and letting Lucas still go over there. Um, but yeah, no, he knew. She also, if they ever fought or anything was beginning to be too much, she would have Brian come and get her and she would go stay at his house. So Brian was overly involved.
Hmm. Poor Brian. He's just a good guy.
He seems like a good guy. That I agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, I think that he puts Lucas first in everything.
Mhm.
I mean, just somebody watching from far, but it looks that way. I think he's done a really good job of trying to keep his privacy and not have their lives even more invaded.
Well, and he's the oldest of the children, and he's got to protect his parents and his brother and sister,
Yeah.
and the family name.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother thing. I was talking about that recently, that it's like if she wouldn't have kept her name, that whole family probably would be fine.
Oh yeah, that was the first thing I thought about was like, oh, why didn't she change it back to Paulson?
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor Boone family.
Well, and so the question that keeps getting asked is that they wonder if Brian will take Lucas to visit her in prison. And like, well, it's none of our business anyway, but I think whatever he decides to do, he seems like he's been making great calls that are very helpful in raising Lucas. So I
Mhm.
think that whatever his decision will be the right one. And who knows,
I
maybe
almost
Lucas doesn't even want to do that at this point.
I that's what I was going to say is that I think he would actually talk to Lucas about it and let Lucas make the decision and
Yeah,
not just drag him there.
right.
Because at this point he's getting close to adulthood.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't think Brian would force anything.
I'm just sorry that she has chose to lead her life this way.
Yeah,
And like you said, it's a great PSA for alcohol free.
yeah,
I have quite a few friends who chose to be sober for just the mere poisons that are in alcohol, not to
yeah,
mention the alcohol doing whatever it does to a person anyways.
yeah.
And I feel like it's definitely can be a trigger to somebody who has some kind of mental ailment. I mean, look, we give coffee to a hyperactive person and they go down. I mean,
Hmm.
so yeah, I'm just, I'm sorry that I just don't know what went wrong where.
I think it just was a slow progression. But like I said, I completely think the alcohol was the main issue.
100%.
Do you know if at any point she was working anywhere? That's been a question mark.
Um, the only, I mean, I don't even know what company it was, but I knew she worked in an office for like a construction company at one point, but that was like 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it seems like when her and Brian officially got married, that not soon after, it was probably like a few months, I think, but she then quit and was a stay-at-home mom. So that wouldn't surprise me if even what you're saying was her last job because she wasn't working for quite some time.
Hmm. Wow. Let's really not be responsible, shall we?
Yeah, well, she was getting alimony from Brian. So
Ah,
that is, yeah. So she
I
didn't
hate the
have
whole
to at the
divorce
time.
system.
Say that again.
I hate the whole divorce system.
It's crazy.
Just wanted to thank you for filling me in a little bit more of everything that you've been doing to get the other side and the other information. And um, I feel like you were also, saddened that no one came to speak for her. Um, Despite, the media portraying her as a horrible person and a monster. And um I I wish her the best. I mean, obviously she's going to be sober in prison.
Yeah,
Um, and maybe might have a chance to figure out things and come up and apologize or whatever. But wish the best for her. I really wish the best for Brian and his family and Lucas.
me too.
Um, yeah, I'm gonna try and reach out to him because I feel bad. I didn't know about this, or I would have reached out to him sooner as a friend.
Yeah.
Um, I might even try and get a hold of Phil too. But yeah, no, this has been very enlightening. I really thank you for contacting me because otherwise I would have still been in the dark.
Yeah. Maybe someday you would have found out, but maybe not.
I mean, and I usually know what's going on. I usually tell my parents what's going on with their friends before they know it.
Yeah.
And wow, yeah.
Well,
But I've had a busy life. I've got a 20-year-old, a son graduating high school this year. I've got another one in sixth grade, and
oh,
have my business and my
yeah.
husband's business, and we're busy.
Yeah. No, it happens. Life happens. So yeah, you're taking on a lot. Well, I think at least for me being able to tell you and you being able to reach out to Brian, and now that I know you also knew his family, I think
Hmm.
I'm really happy that you reached out back to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I would do that for my childhood friend.